Sue, your clothes.
Why does this always happen to me?
Now you see her, now you don't. It's time for the evolution of the Invisible Woman, or as she's known in her first appearance, the Invisible Girl. The first appearance of the Invisible Woman was in the 1967 animated series Fantastic Four. Sue Storm was every bit the blonde bombshell she was in the early Fantastic Four comics, in the classic baby blue costume. Her powers made her look ghostly, a simple white outline. It's never easy to show someone whose power is to disappear in a way that's realistic, without making it impossible to see their actions. This was a simple but effective way of doing so.
He moved. I think he's coming too. Hey, not too fast. You had a bad fall.
In 1978's The New Fantastic Four, the way her powers were shown were pretty much the same as the 1967 version. Unlike in the 67 show where she had a typical 60s hairstyle, here she has a typical 70s hairstyle. This is the last appearance where she's referred to as Invisible Girl rather than the Invisible Woman.
It's following me. I'll turn invisible to get away from it. How can it keep following me when it can't see me?
Fantastic Four, the animated series, which aired between 1994 and 1996, was almost like two separate shows. A shift in animation studios between Season 1 and Season 2 meant that there were a bunch of changes, including a move from the classic blue suits into darker black, blue, and white suits in the second run. The only steadfast between the two costumes was the ever-present 4 logo on the chest. Sue's powers changed too. In the first season, she's shown as a ghostly transparent version of her normal self, but in Season 2, she is back to a white outline version. In the episode, Now Comes the Submariner, Sue finds herself kidnapped by Namor, who wants to make her his queen.
I was speaking of my world and yours. We could join together to save the oceans. I know there is much you could teach us. The unreleased live-action Fantastic Four movie from the same year was a B movie, and everything about it was low budget. Rebecca Stabb stepped into the role of Sue Storm, and she was a great choice, a beauty pageant participant who looked every bit the part. Sadly, the special effects let the character and the movie down. When she uses her powers, it looks like she's fading in and out of reality entirely, and she has to be half visible to show where she is.
I have my reasons too. I love you, Reed.
I gotta make sure nothing here happens to Sis.
Sue was briefly featured in a crossover on 1996's The Incredible Hulk show, which was in the same universe as the Fantastic Four animated series. But this was just a passing shot as she took off on holiday with Reed and Johnny, leaving Thing to look after things at HQ. Another in-universe crossover happened in 1997, which was a part of the Secret Wars arc. She creates a huge force field to protect the team's base from giant worms. The costume was a bit of a departure from previous versions, with the 4 logo moved to the left-hand side.
Yes, my love. I'll be fine.
The first official live-action Sue Storm was played by none other than Jessica Alba, who brought a different twist on the classic Sue we all know. Her not being a natural blonde was a departure, but she made up for it with plenty of star power and being one of the most coveted women on Earth at the time. Nobody seemed to mind once her hair was dyed and she was in a skin-tight bodysuit. Imagine cinemas filled with dudes during the scene where she strips out of her clothes when invisible, only to go visible and show her underwear. In terms of her powers, this was the first time CGI and special effects could be used to actually show the power of invisibility and force fields realistically, without needing to show a white outline, which was the typical animated method. The effects in this movie weren't cutting edge by any means, but they did a great job of showcasing how cool Sue's powers really were for the first time on screen.
There was you and me. There were no variables, no math. It was actually the simplest thing in the world. Like always, Reed, your head got in the way.
No, it didn't.
Then what was it?
The character of the Invisible Woman makes an appearance in the Monster Rush episode of Robot Chicken. During the battle with Dr. Doom, she utilizes her invisibility powers but unfortunately gets struck and pulled by a passing car. Surprisingly, none of her fellow Fantastic Four teammates are aware of this incident. With 2006's Fantastic Four: World's Greatest Heroes, we saw an anime version of Marvel's First Family, and sleek modern white, blue, and orange bodysuits were introduced just for this show. Sue retained her blonde hair and blue eyes. This style also showed off her powers in new ways, throwing balls of force field energy, riding a disc of invisible matter outlined to show this, and creating huge force fields. In one episode, She even temporarily switches powers with Johnny, making her the Human Torch for a while.
Johnny, calm down. People are looking.
Alba was back in 2007 in Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. And this time, she made the first family official, marrying Reed. And we see Sue in her wedding dress. Not before she ends up switching powers with Johnny and scaring herself, flying and burning red hot. Her connection with the Silver Surfer is what eventually saves humanity, showing it's not all about Sue Storm's abilities. Her humility is like its own superpower.
Why are you destroying our planet?
What do you mean you don't have a choice? There's always a choice.
In the Superhero Squad show, which launched in 2009, we got a chibi version of the character for the first time with squished down looks. In Support Your Local Skyfather, she hid inside her force field to film a contest between Thor and Hercules.
Mr. Mayor, anyone who could hear this, it's Loki is going to.
In 2011, she also appeared in the Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes, playing a supporting role in several episodes. Her look is in line with her classic comic book appearance, with her blue suit, blonde hair, and her quick wit is there to boot too. The most notable appearance was in the Season 2 premiere, where she's kidnapped along with the Wasp by Doctor Doom as he attacks the Avengers and Fantastic Four together.
Tell Reed that Jan and I are having some girl time, assuming he notices you're there.
Her next appearance was in 2014 in Hulk and the Agents of S.M.A.S.H. In the episode Monsters No More, the Fantastic Four help the team take on a Tribite invasion, protecting herself from the aliens' laser guns with her force field. The suits also got an upgrade to a sleeker style, with black running down the front where the 4 logo sits. Once again in live action, Hollywood couldn't quite cast Sue Storm right with a 2015 reboot movie. Kate Mara took on the role. Don't get me wrong, great actress, but again not blonde, and not like the Invisible Woman from the comics or animated shows that just looked right. The background of the character was also changed, probably because her brother's role was cast to a black actor. The studio decided it would be best if the two weren't blood related to keep things more realistic. Instead, Sue is explained as an orphan adopted from Kosovo rather than Johnny's biological sister. The suit is plain black too, nothing like the source material, as this movie went for a more realistic take. The problem was, it just sucked. However, the effects were modern and Sue's powers looked incredible, showing what it's like for her inside her force fields, and the invisibility looked super slick too. If this movie actually resembled the actual Fantastic Four, it would have been cool.
They're not powers, they're aggressively abnormal physical conditions that we're gonna fix. Can you turn that off?
Marvel TLDR let fans recap classic Marvel storylines in action comic form, including The Coming of Galactus and Inhumans Among Us, both centered around the Fantastic Four, told in a basic animation style similar to the one we see on the page. With 2020's Marvel Superhero Adventures, Chibi Sue was back. This time helps Spider-Man take down Swarm. Her invisible form shows her features fully and is just a transparent version of her figure, still wearing her F4 uniform.
It works by bending all the energy around me into a shield.
Finally, with the Fantastic Four coming into the MCU, we have a perfect Sue Storm casting. It only took like nearly 2 decades. Vanessa Kirby, famous for The Crown on Netflix, is becoming the Invisible Woman in 2025's Fantastic Four MCU debut, and they couldn't have picked anyone better. A great actress with the look already nailed down without any amendments needed. We might get to see a 60s style Sue Storm if the promo materials have anything to say about the plot, and the baby blue suits are back, baby. I can't wait to see Vanessa tear it up on screen.